course, multitasking. And that is to be turning these into these. These are the caps for my my canisters, which I've got one over here. Hold on just a second. Coming back. You're like, where is she? I just got on the stream and nobody's there. All right, so these are my little canisters. And put the cap on that, put a food saver or a vacuum pump. You pump out the air. You put this in here. And then it'll seal, get the air out. And then whatever you have stored in here is going to last longer, which in today's day and age, we don't want to have our food wasted. We want that food to last a long time, be it shelf stable, where it can last for a couple of years. If you get the oxygen out, you got the air out, that's what makes your food go stale and taste bad, and the nutrients degrade over time. Obviously, you also have to keep it in a cooler temperature, and not let sunlight get into that. So like pantry cabinets, if you've got a cellar, that's the best place to store food, because normally your cellar is going to be much more temperature friendly, because you've got the insulation of the dirt and everything. California is really tough to have a space to store the food, because it's going to be in the 90s today. And so, I've got my pantry, I've got a spare bedroom, but then after that, I've got the garage, and I've got outdoor Connex, and that's really tough to keep climate controlled so that the food isn't going to go bad. But that's the topic of today's live stream, is we're going to talk about means of production and waste not, want not. So excuse me while I am marking these caps. So what I got to do here, this next step, yesterday I was working on cleaning the print off of the PVC. That's the print there, using acetone. And now the next process is I need to mark where I need to drill on these caps. So that's the quiet work that I can do while I'm talking as well. So I will, please comment if you got any questions, want to know how things are going, or if you have any opinions you'd like to share with me. I'd really appreciate it. But means of production. So that thumbnail picture there was me in front of some of my machines. You can see behind me, I got a drill. I've got the bandsaw. I've got some sanders, a couple different kinds. I've got, over here is my workbench, where I do a lot of crafting as well, finishing up routing. I've got some routers and some hand sanders. Down there at the end is a panel sander, or also called a stroke sander. The big green thing back right there is my planer. And these four things here that kind of look like planers, those are CNC machines. So they're made by Cartwright, and you may think like a traditional CNC machine is like this huge 4-foot by 8-foot table, which takes up a lot of space. Well, this workshop is like at least twice as big as the one that I had back in Maryland. But even though I've got more space here, this is great because I can have 4 machines going at once. And even though there's a small footprint, it'll only go about 14 inches wide, but it's on, it's got like a conveyor belt on there. So it will move my piece of my work, and I can actually have up to 12 feet long, as long as I have enough room on either side of the machine. So I can make some really big signs. I think the biggest sign I've actually made has been 33 inches by 60 inches. And how I overcame that 15-inch or 14-inch limitation is I just broke up the sign, and then I individually carved them, and then I glued it all together. And I've got a couple neighbors that have really big signs like that, just talking about their, whatever they want to name their little 2.5 acres or 5 acres. Spare wood, miter saw, and back there, the little red thing, that is a underpinner for doing frames, and I think that's about it. Oh, and yeah, more wood. So here in California, it's really dry, and so I keep my wood all inside under cover as much as I can, and then my corian I have stored outside for when I do work with corian. So these are all my means of production, and how I started off in 2005 with nothing but a Dremel, and my husband had a circular or a table saw. Oh, didn't point that out because it's kind of hidden by the box. So over there, all hidden with a bunch of junk right now, is my table saw. I haven't been using that as much, so that's why it's been allowed to get a little icky. Hold on a second. There it goes. So in the effort to save money, I set my lights to automatically turn off when it doesn't see me move. But anyhow, the purpose of me showing you my workshop here on a channel that's more about prepping and politics is to encourage you to get started into obtaining means of production, because who knows what the future has in store for us. If you have a job where it depends on the economy, and the economy is tanking, and whatever it is that your business sells is more of a luxury item, and not a needed item, then your job could be in jeopardy. So starting on a side hustle while you still have that job is, I would definitely highly recommend that you do that as much as possible. And so basically I started off with a router that I had been gifted when I was in high school, and I was doing it in shop class. In middle school, I really enjoyed woodworking, and a Dremel. That's what I had, and my husband already had the table saw, and I think we already had the miter saw from doing different things around the house. And then it exploded into all of this, basically little at a time. Oh, and I have a joiner over here too. I didn't point that out. That was really neat because that's a great example of how I kind of built it up. Everything else pretty much is all used. I got them used, and tools, they don't really drop in value a whole heck of a lot, but it is cheaper than buying them new. And even on my CNC machines, every single one of them I bought used. Some of them didn't work, but I learned how to fix them. And to buy them new would be, I don't know, about $2,000. Hi, I'm multitasking. That's my husband.
Hello.
We're live. And I'm just marking the caps here.
Okay.
What's up?
I'm just taking a break.
Okay. All right. Multitasking. Say hi. Okay. All right. So I bought everything used, and that's where I would recommend, if at all possible, that's how you start off as well. And then I flip things. So the big joiner that I have over there, I started off with a jointer that I bought for, I don't know, $40 or $50 at a yard sale, and flipped it into something that was then a little bit bigger. Maybe it was $100, and then it was like a 4-inch by 36-inch, so that you can edge clean more things, bigger signs, and just incrementally went up. And then of course I'd sell the old one, so then it made that new one even less expensive. And then that panel sander, that great big huge table that was on the other end of my workshop there, that you may have seen holding all my canisters while I've been working on them. That started off as an edge sander, and I did a few increments on that as well, and then I got that used. I had to drive down into LA, and luckily I bought it from a business that they made doors, and they were hoping to use that to be able to sand the doors smooth, but they do it at such a large scale that the panel sander just wasn't enough for them, and so they wound up getting a huge belt sander that probably was some $30,000. So they didn't have any for that panel sander. That panel sander is probably about a $7,000 machine, brand new, but the guy I bought it from got it used, and then it was just taking up valuable, expensive real estate in a warehouse in Los Angeles, and he just wanted to get rid of it. And so I think he was asking $450, And I didn't even negotiate on it. Normally I'll say, hey, you're asking this amount, would you take this amount? They either say yes or they say no. If it's something that I still feel is worth it, pay whatever the price may happen to be. But I didn't even have to negotiate. And he was like, I'll take 400. Well, not only did he take 400, but he had like 4 guys and a forklift that helped get it on top of the trailer. So that was a real fun day. And then I brought it home, and then getting it off was another adventure. But the thing that it replaced, I was able to sell for more than what I bought that for. So I really came out ahead in that deal. But not many people have room for a sander that has an 8-foot bed, and then of course it extends on either side. But I use that a lot. Not only is it great for storing my canisters while I'm in the middle of processing them, but it's also great for actually using it as a sander. So, if it's so it needs a production, definitely something that you want to look into investing in. I think that's probably that, along with food, because of course the price of food is going up all the time. Rather than putting your money in the stock market and not knowing when the bottom is going to fall out on that, put your money into things that can make you money or save you money going forward. So saving you money going forward would be like buying things that you're going to need in the next year or so, like food, like car parts that you're going to need, like oil filters, oil, tires for your car, brakes. Those are all things that you're going to need to maintain your vehicle, and could possibly be in short supply in the coming year, or even if you can find it, that at least the price is going to go up. And then the other thing, of course, to recommend is getting that means of production going. So in the event that you need to make more money to be able to afford these preps and things, or if, God forbid, that you were to lose your job, then you have another way of bringing money into the family. And then train yourself. The first couple things that you do aren't going to be all that great. When I was learning how to make signs and I had just had the router and my Dremel tool, I didn't have the CNCs yet. It's just handmade, and it didn't look perfect, but there were people who did find value in it. I started off by just doing it as gifts for family and friends. If there was any event that was coming up, Christmas, birthday, graduation, I would make one of those to give as a gift. And then that was a heartfelt gift to them. I didn't have to pay a heck of a lot for the materials, because the wood I also try and get used. I'm doing my lights again. And then the benefit to me, of course, was that I got more experience in my craft. And then eventually I started doing an Etsy store, still making it by hand. And I got a good number of orders that way. And then I started getting way more orders than I can actually handle. So my husband was, encouraged me and said, you should look into getting a CNC. That would just help out so much. And, I was thinking, oh, well, I don't know if I can learn how to do that. I don't know if we have, we didn't have the space, because our workshop was a lot smaller than what I've got here right now. And it also did double duty. We also used it for taking care of the cars in the same space. So that's when I found out about these Cartwrights, where they have a very small footprint, but you can still make pretty decently large signs. And then I started flipping them as well. So it was a huge investment on that first one. It took me a few months to figure out how to actually make signs with it. Learning how to use the software. And then, of course, it takes time to learn how to, you list all that stuff on Etsy and everything. But then, occasionally, those things can go down. It's a machine. Things can break. Sometimes it's user error. Sometimes it's just they're finicky. And plus, I got them used, got them old, and so sometimes things go down. So I'm like, well, I've got orders. I still need to get the orders done. And, if I have a machine go down, it might take me a while to figure out what the problem is or to get the part. Thank you, Remy. I appreciate it. And thank you, Anita. I appreciate your comments as well. Thank you for the compliments on the workshop. But of course, as I was saying, this is not an overnight thing. It's just a little bit at a time. And using, reinvesting money that we earned from making the signs to get the next step. So anyhow, when I started with the CNCs, and then I quickly realized that you can't just have one, because if something goes wrong with that machine and you've got orders, customers don't really particularly care what your problems are in getting their order out. They want their order out. Now, within a few days, they can, generally people are patient, but anything much more than that, and over and above what you originally promised them, and you're more than likely going to find that you're going to have to refund it. So I would just be on the lookout on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and eBay, and look for these machines in my area. And I would drive up to several hours away to see what I could find. And some of them were in non-working condition, and I just thought, okay, well, I'll use it as a parts machine, because the parts alone are pretty expensive to get from the company. And anyhow, in learning how to do that, in fixing these machines, some of them I was able to fix up, and then I would flip them and be able to sell them for more than twice what I paid for them. And then some of them, I would keep as backups. And where I was before in Maryland, I only had room to have 2 set up and working. And so those were, I think I just brought those 2. Maybe I had a third one at that time. Maybe I brought 3 here to California from there. And then once I got here to California, still being on the lookout for them, I now have 4 that I can run at one time. One of them is right now not working, but I'm going to fix that. The sandpaper belt broke. The machine otherwise is perfectly fine. It was, again, used, but the person who owned it only had about 20 hours of time on it when I bought it. And so it had the original sandpaper belts. Since then, the company has upgraded to rubber belts. So it just takes a little bit of time. The sandpaper belts broke. I have the kit. I need to to upgrade it. But it probably is just going to take me about an hour to take it all apart, put on the new rubber belts, and then get it back going again. And since I've had 3 working, and I've actually been concentrating more on doing these canisters where I don't need the machines, it's just been on the back burner, and so it's just been sitting there for a little bit here. But whatever your passion may be, look into getting those means of productions. If you are good at sewing, get a sewing machine. Get a spare sewing machine, because again, I know from my own experience that sewing machines can also go down and be a little finicky. I don't know enough about them at this point to be able to flip sewing machines, but I've got 2. So I have them have it on hand and a backup just in case I need to start repairing things. And there go my lights again. I need to increase the time frame that it stays on. Maybe I should go and do that. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was waste not, want not. And I'd like your opinion on this. So when I make these lids, and then I turn them into this size, so it's easier to take on and off, I end up with this little ring. And I have a ton of those little rings. So in that little corner there, ton of rings back there. Again, I've been so busy with making stuff, I haven't had time to clean up. So if any of you have an idea of what to use these rings for, cover the cost of shipping and just a little bit extra for my time, and I'd be happy to mail those to you. They're not very heavy, so I can't imagine it would be too terribly expensive to ship. But I just don't want to throw them in the landfill. Let me see, what have we got here? We got some more comments. I definitely want to see those, but it disappeared on me. Somebody comment again. Whenever anybody comments, the comments show back up again, at least for a little bit. All right. None of us know what the future is, Anita. You're right. You're right. You might want to look at doing metal 5-gallon versions for larger projects. Expand on that, Anita. What do you mean? Like for doing um, the the canisters, do like a 5 gallon? Yeah, there are people who do that as well. They have a setup where they'll have either a paint can or a brand new one. They sell new paint cans, um, or those 5 gallon buckets where you can seal those and make those airtight, and then drill holes in them where you can then get the air pumped out. But I made mine this size because most of the time people only are doing one jar at a time. At least that's the way I use it. I'm not going to say most people. The way I use it, I do one at a time. I'm not that big a production that I want to have something big. And it takes up a lot less room on my counter to have, um, this little thing versus a 5 gallon bucket. Also, with the 5 gallon bucket, you need a stronger vacuum pump to be able to pump out that air. A food saver is not going to do that for you. So keep that in mind. But I have been hearing on other people's channels that there are stores that are starting to put limits, like Walmart's and Costco's and things like that. That Dollar Tree stores are getting low on that inexpensive food. Well, Dollar Tree has those inexpensive food because it's left over from the main grocery stores. So when things start getting near their expiration date and the grocery store needs to have turnover because they're continually getting new things in, but if they have things that are nearing their expiration date, it'll go over to the Dollar Tree, and then they'll be marked down over there. So I can imagine it's probably getting tough for the Dollar Trees and Dollar Generals of the world to get those cheap near expiration or near Best By date cans of food, because it's all being bought up in the grocery stores originally. So those are all things to consider when you're thinking about your preps. That time is running out. And I was listening to Economic Ninja, and they were talking about that all this food inflation that we're seeing right now is likely nothing compared to what we are going to see once fall hits. Because right now, our food prices have increased mostly based on the fact that fuel prices have gone up, the cost of the cost of labor has gone up. So those are the things that have been factored into how much our food prices have gone up. The added cost of diesel for them harvesting has not been factored in yet. The added cost of the high fertilizer rates have not been factored in yet, because that fertilizer price started going up in October. And so that's for this current growing season. So when that food hits the market, that's when prices are likely to go up even more. And there's a lot of different weather events going on in America right now where some states are still too wet. Like I heard that Ohio has been getting way too much rain and the ground is too wet for them to finish their planting. That they're way behind schedule in planting in some states because of too much rain. And then there are other parts of the country, I believe like Kansas, that is a major wheat producer for America and the world, that it has been abnormally dry. So the harvest in that is going to be hindered a great deal because of that. So don't stop your preps. If I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't tell you. I have no idea what would be the thing to do with any money that you may currently have in the stock market, especially if it's something that would penalize you for taking it out. I don't know what that answer is as to whether you should take that penalty. You'd have to discuss that with a financial advisor. But in terms of whether or not you should continue putting more money into it or put money into things like preps and food and means of production, so that if you needed to provide for yourself and not have to depend on an employer for a paycheck, I think that's probably would be a wise investment to invest in yourself there rather than in the stock market. Next step that I'm doing here, because I am done putting all of these on there, is I am cutting these little bits of contact paper. I think they're from contact paper, but it's just a shelf liner. And I got these at a yard sale, so I don't have to add anything to the price of these canisters really, because it's just minuscule. So I'll just cut them round, and then I put them in the bottom of the jar, and then that'll help kind of cushion the jar going into the canister. But anyhow, I appreciate you all watching. I'm going to have to get back to making noise, so I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for watching. Let me see if anybody else had anything to say before I say goodbye. Okay. Well, Anita, again, thank you for your comments. Thank you, Romeo. I appreciate you. And I will talk to you all next time. God bless. Bye.